Hello guys. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're gonna be talking about the Prince of Abyss, Dyrroth. And I'm also gonna tell you guys how Dyrroth works in full details, which includes his skills, passive, builds, emblems, spell, and also how to use him in a match. So let's get started with the video. Dyrroth is currently one of the most picked heroes in high rank and also in tournaments. What makes him special among pro players is his ability to weaken the physical defense of the opponents, and burst them down in an instant, allowing him to easily bring down squishy mages and marksmen in the backline. So if you truly want to master playing Dyrroth, it's important to have a solid understanding of his abilities and how to use them effectively. So, let's start with his passive. After every 2 basic attacks, he will release Circle Strike, dealing physical damage to enemies around him and also regenerating 40% of the damage dealt to the enemies, meaning the more damage he deals with his basic attacks, the higher the HP regeneration will be. That was the first phase of his passive. Now let's talk about his second phase of his passive. Dyrroth has 2 rage bars or passive bars, and when his passive reaches one of the 2 bars, it will enhance his first and second skill, meaning your first and second skill will deal more damage.
Is ours.
Legendary.
Come on, rats.
Legendary.
And you can increase his passive by attacking minions and creeps and also turrets. And each time you hit an enemy hero, the cooldown of your first and second skill will be decreased by 1 second. Now, let's talk about his first skill. With the help of his first skill, Dyrroth releases a burst strike in a designated direction. Each burst deals 200 physical damage to enemies and slows them by 25% for 1.5 seconds. And if you have your passive bars stacked up, his first skill will have a longer range and deal 140% of its original damage, and the slow effects are also doubled. His first skill is really useful during the laning phase, as you could use it to constantly keep poking the enemy even if they are inside the turret. Now, let's talk about his second skill. This is your bread and butter skill, so make sure to max this skill first. With the help of his second skill you can dash to a designated location, and then deal 345 physical damage when you use his second skill for the second time. What makes his second skill so special is that it reduces the target's physical defense by 50% for 4 seconds, meaning you can easily melt the enemies. And if you have 1 or 2 passive bars, it will deal 150% of its original damage and also reduce their physical defense by 75%. And if you're wondering, his second skill is the main reason why most players tend to use him in high ranks and even in tournaments. Most of the times people find X-Borg and Esmeralda annoying and hard to play against. But if you pick Dyrroth against these heroes, you'll have little to no trouble fighting these heroes. With the help of his second skill, you can easily melt X-Borg's shield and finish him off with your ultimate. Now, let's talk about his ultimate. With the help of his ultimate, Dyrroth charges and releases a fatal strike, dealing huge physical damage equal to his base damage, plus 20% of enemies' lost HP along the way, and also slowing them by 55% for 0.8 seconds. Something important you should know about his ultimate skill is that, the lower the HP of the enemy, the more damage it'll deal, making his ultimate more of a finishing skill, rather than initiation. As you can see, his ultimate deals more damage when the enemy's HP are low. And you can also use flicker with his ultimate. The cast animation has a slight delay, so you need to predict the direction where your target is moving. And most enemies who are smart will usually try dodging your ultimate. That's why having flicker is important. Now, before we talk about his build's emblem and gameplay, here's some fun facts about Dyrroth you didn't know. Sylvana is Dyrroth's older sister, and he was named Dyrus, then Darius before his name was changed into Dyrroth when he was first released in the advanced server. And Dyrroth gains 1% extra attack speed if there is Sylvana in the enemy team. And his ultimate skill was called Destruction Rush before being changed to Abysm Strike. Likely because the name was already used for Layla's ultimate Destruction Ultimate. According to a Facebook post by MLBB, Dyrroth conquered and defeated Balmond in the Orcs. Balmond surrendered to him, causing Balmond to fall to Dyrroth's power. Balmond and the Orcs were dominated, tormented and tyrannized by Dyrroth. Now, let's talk about his emblems. To maximize your damage output while playing Dyrroth, select Assassin Emblem. It gives you adaptive penetration and adaptive attack, along with extra movement speed. Choose Rupture in the first tier for additional adaptive penetration, and Weapon Master in the second tier for increased physical attack from equipment, emblem, talents, and skills. And for your last talent, you can choose between Quantum Charge and Killing Spree for more mobility. But if you want more damage, you can go for Lethal Ignition. Now, let's talk about his battle spell. If you're playing as an EXP laner, Flicker is the most ideal battle spell. It can help you chase down opponents or escape from danger. You can also pair it up with Abysm Strike to extend its range or change its target direction. And if you're facing enemy heroes that like direct combat, such as Freya and Thamuz, opt for Vengeance. This can give you the edge you need to win the lane. Now, let's talk about his builds. When playing Dyrroth, players should use builds that will mainly increase their physical defense, physical attack, spell vamp and health points, as well as cooldown reduction in order to get the best gameplay out of him. For his boots, buy Warrior or Tough Boots depending on the enemy's draft. Buy Warrior Boots if most of the enemies are physical damage heroes. Warrior Boots will provide you with movement speed and 22 physical defense. And buy Tough Boots if there are more than 3 magical damage heroes. Tough Boots shine the brightest when playing against heroes like Vedang, Blue, Moskov, Yin and especially Selena. As these heroes mainly rely on their CC effects before they can unleash their damage in a quick but deadly succession. And for his first item, I would recommend Blade of Heptases, as it provides 70 plus physical damage along with 250 plus HP, with a unique attribute of 15 plus physical penetration. And for his second item, prioritize Hunter Strike. Hunter Strike is one of the core items for Dyrroth. It will provide you with 80 plus physical damage along with 10% cooldown reduction, and a unique attribute of 15 plus physical penetration. What's good about Hunter Strike is its passive, which gives you 50% movement speed for 3 seconds, which comes really handy during fights. The movement speed bonus is activated when you deliver damage to enemy hero 5 times in a row, whether through skill-based or basic attack. As long as you hit the enemy 5 times in a row, the passive of Hunter Strike will be activated. And the physical penetration of the unique attribute of Hunter Strike stacks with Blade of Heptases, making it a good combo. And for his third item, buy Dominance Ice. This is a very good item for Dyrroth. Dominance Ice will provide you with 500 plus mana along with 70 plus physical defense and 5% movement speed. Its unique passive Arctic Cold will reduce the attack speed of nearby enemies by 70%, and it will also reduce the shield and HP regen effects of nearby enemy heroes to 50%, which is really OP if combined with his second skill, which can reduce the enemy's defense. Meaning with the help of Dominance Ice, you will easily be able to melt most heroes without a problem. And for his fourth item, you can choose between Blade of Despair or Malefic Roar. Both items are good for Dyrroth, but I'd recommend you to buy Malefic Roar if you're having a hard time farming, and buy Blade of Despair only when your farm is ahead of the enemies. And for his last item, I would recommend you buy Magic Defense according to the enemy's draft. Buy Athena's Shield if you are playing against heroes like Eudora, Vale or Phoebus. And buy Radiant Armor if there are enemies that deal constant magic damage, like Sylvana, Gord, Chang'e, and Guinevere. Now, let's talk about his playstyle and how to use him in a game. If you are inexperienced and using Dyrroth for the first time, then make sure to unlock your first skill during the starting of the game, as it will help you to clear the minion waves and also poke the enemy. And only upgrade his first skill once, and then try maxing out his second skill. And something you should know is that Dyrroth is a 1 versus 1 hero, so make sure not to try fighting more than one hero during the early game. Just focus on farming and try being ahead of your opponent in terms of EXP and gold. And that way, when it comes to the mid-game, you will easily be able to start dominating. And during the mid to late game, don't be afraid of taking 1 versus 1 fight. Dyrroth is one of the strongest 1 versus 1 fighter. And he can deal a huge amount of damage during the mid to late game. And especially if you have your passive, you can easily melt half of the enemy's HP with just your second skill. And during the mid game, hide in the bush and try picking off enemies that are split pushing. But you need to play smart during the late game. Because during the late game, Dyrroth can easily be caught in the enemy's CC, and it's also very easy to dodge his skills. So try closing the gap between you and the enemies, and your main priority during the late game should be picking off the squishy enemies in the back lines, and also keep an eye on the mini-map and look for enemies who are alone. So, what do you think about Dyrroth? In my opinion, Dyrroth is a very solid fighter who can also be used as a jungler. Especially if you have a good experience using him, he can be really scary and overpowered. And if you watched the whole video, make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments and also leave a like on the video, and subscribe to my channel for more awesome videos like this. Thank you for watching.